Okay, so imagine you're Sabine Kehm, managing a global icon like Michael Schumacher, carefully rebuilding his image after, that horrific ski accident back in 2013. And suddenly you get this chilling phone call.
Oh, wow.
Someone is demanding 15 million euros, or else they're going to release private photos of Schumacher onto the dark web.
Wow, talk about a nightmare scenario.
I know, right?
It really highlights the underbelly of fame, doesn't it? Even when someone like Schumacher, tries to retreat from the public eye, like disappear,
Yeah.
their vulnerability can still be exploited.
Yeah.
And using the dark web, that just adds a whole other layer of threat that's really tough to counter. Yep.
Exactly. It's not just your average gossip rag, right? This is like a deliberate attempt to profit from a deeply personal and challenging situation. So let's unpack what we know about this whole scheme. Our deep dive today focuses on this blackmail plot. We're going to be digging into the sources you've provided. We'll try to understand, who is involved and what their motivations might be, and what are the implications of all this for privacy in our digital world.
Yeah, for sure. It's a story that just raises so many questions, especially about the people involved, right? Who would do this and why?
Well, the alleged source of these photos is a former security guard for the Schumacher family, Markus Fritsche. You'd think someone in that position would understand the importance of discretion and loyalty,
Yeah, it's a massive breach of trust, especially given Schumacher's health condition. This wasn't just a celebrity trying to keep their, vacation photos private. This was about protecting someone at their most vulnerable.
Absolutely. And there's this detail about a nurse who worked with Schumacher after the accident. Apparently, she was quite friendly with Frisch. But then she left because of concerns over the quality of care. So was that just a coincidence? Or is there something more to it? We don't know for sure, but it definitely adds another layer to this whole situation.
Right.
Did Fritsch use this connection with the nurse to gain access to even more sensitive information? Was the nurse involved somehow? It's like something out of a spy thriller.
It really is.
And to make things even more complicated, this wasn't a solo operation. Frisch allegedly brought in a nightclub bouncer, a guy named Yilmaz Tosturkin, and his son, Daniel Linz, who's an IT expert.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine that family dinner conversation? So, Dad, what did you do at work today?
Oh, just helped blackmail a Formula One legend.
Yeah, it's a bizarre mix of the mundane and the extraordinary.
Tosturkin claims he was simply asked by Frisch if they could, quote, do something, end quote, with the material. But come on. Even without being, tech savvy, you'd have to know this is crossing a line.
For sure. And that begs the question, what was their motive? Was it purely financial? 15 million euros is a life-changing sum, but to risk jail time, to potentially destroy your life for it.
Yeah. That's where it gets interesting, right? While money is often the primary driver in these cases, there could be other factors at play.
Okay. Like what?
Well, think about the dark web element. It attracts individuals who operate outside the norms, who thrive on risk and secrecy.
Interesting.
So maybe there's an element of wanting to prove.
Yeah.
That they could pull off something this audacious.
Yeah, or maybe there's a personal angle we haven't uncovered yet. Resentment, a desire for revenge, some twisted idea of like evening the score with the rich and famous. We're dealing with human motivations here, and those are rarely simple.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that these are just allegations at this point.
Right.
The case is in court.
Yeah.
And we need to see how their defense unfolds.
Yeah.
It's possible they'll claim they were manipulated, that they, didn't fully understand the implications of their actions.
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Or maybe they'll drop a bombshell and reveal a motive none of us saw coming. This whole case is like a puzzle, with pieces still missing.
For sure. And we can't forget about the legal battle itself. The Schumacher family is fiercely protective of Michael's privacy. They even filed a motion to keep his health details out of the public court proceedings.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It just adds another layer of complexity to this already tangled web, right? On the one hand, you have these principles of open justice, like the public's right to know. But on the other hand, you have this deeply personal tragedy that the family's trying to shield from further exploitation.
It's a classic dilemma, isn't it? Balancing individual privacy with the public's interest. And in the digital age where information spreads like wildfire, that line becomes increasingly blurred.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder if if the law is even equipped to deal with these kinds of threats. I mean, the dark web is designed for anonymity. It makes it incredibly difficult to track down perpetrators. Is this a sign that we're losing the battle for online privacy?
It certainly highlights the challenges law enforcement faces, but remember, they did catch these individuals, so it's not an entirely hopeless situation. It takes time and resources and international collaboration, but the authorities are working to combat these kinds of cybercrimes.
Okay, that's good to hear. But it's still a little unnerving to think that someone could potentially target any of us, using our digital footprints against us. Every photo, every message, every online transaction, it all leaves a trace.
That's the reality we live in, unfortunately. But we shouldn't let fear paralyze us, right? There are steps we can all take to protect ourselves. Strong passwords, two-factor authentication, being cautious about what we share online.
Yeah, I get that, but sometimes it just feels like a losing battle, The technology is always evolving, new threats are emerging. It's hard to keep up.
I totally get it. It's a constant learning curve, even for someone like me who deals with these issues regularly. But the key is to not bury our heads in the sand, right? By staying informed, by being proactive, we can at least minimize the risks.
That makes sense. But what about the bigger picture? What does this case say about our society's obsession with celebrity and the lengths people will go to exploit it?
It's a disturbing reflection of our values, isn't it? Fame has become a commodity, something to be bought, sold, and exploited. And with the rise of social media, the lines between public and private have become so blurred that it's almost impossible to maintain any sense of control over your own narrative.
Yeah, and when someone like Schumacher, who achieved fame through his skill and dedication, becomes the target of this kind of callous exploitation, it makes you question the whole system.
It does. It makes you wonder if the price of fame is simply too high, The constant scrutiny, the invasion of privacy, the risk of becoming a target for unscrupulous individuals. Is it worth it?
That's a question each individual has to answer for themselves, I suppose. But for those who choose to live in the public eye, the need for vigilance, for protective measures is paramount.
Absolutely. And even for those of us who aren't global icons. This case serves as a stark reminder that we're all vulnerable in the digital age. We need to be aware of the risks and take steps to protect ourselves, even if it means sacrificing a bit of convenience or being more mindful of our online presence.
It's a delicate balance for sure,
Yeah.
but one that's becoming increasingly important to navigate as technology continues to advance, and the lines between our physical and digital lives continue to blur.
We need to find ways to harness the power of technology without becoming enslaved by it, right?
Well-
To connect with each other without sacrificing our privacy, to share information without leaving ourselves open to exploitation.
Those are big challenges, but ones that we can't afford to ignore. Yeah, it is unsettling to think about the implications this case has for everyone, Not just celebrities. It feels like with the dark web, anyone is fair game.
Right. That sense of unease is understandable. The dark web can feel like this hidden world operating with its own rules, and that can be unsettling. But it's important to remember that law enforcement is actively working to combat cybercrime, even in those dark corners.
Yeah, that is somewhat reassuring, but for the average person, it still feels like the odds are stacked against you. How can we realistically protect ourselves?
Sometimes the most effective defenses are the simplest. Strong, unique passwords for every account. And no, password 123 doesn't count. Seriously, use a password manager if you need to. Enabling two-factor authentication wherever possible is another simple but powerful step.
Okay, those are good practical tips, but beyond that, what can we learn from this whole Schumacher situation? It just feels so invasive.
It is. It's a stark reminder that the digital world, for all its advantages, comes with a dark side. And with the rise of the Internet of Things, where our homes, cars, even our health data are connected, that dark side has even more potential for harm.
So what's the takeaway here? Should we all just become digital hermits and unplug from everything?
Not necessarily. It's about finding a balance, being aware of the risks, taking sensible precautions, and not blindly trusting that our data is always safe. Think about what you're sharing online, who has access to it, and what the potential consequences might be.
That's true. It's easy to get caught up in the convenience of technology, to click accept without even reading the terms and conditions, to share personal information without thinking twice.
And that's exactly what these malicious actors are counting on, our complacency. We need to be more vigilant, more discerning, to ask ourselves, is this piece of information worth sharing? Who am I giving access to? What are the potential downsides?
It's a shift in mindset, really, from passively consuming technology to actively engaging with it and understanding its implications.
Exactly. This case, as disturbing as it is, can serve as a catalyst for that kind of critical thinking. It's a wake-up call, reminding us that privacy, both online and offline, is something we need to actively protect.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the most important message you want our listener to take away?
It's a simple but powerful one. Be informed, be proactive, and be vigilant. Your digital life is an extension of your real life, and it deserves the same level of care and attention.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this journey. It's been a sobering look at the dark side of fame and the challenges we all face in protecting our privacy in the digital age. For our listener, we hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and maybe even inspired you to take some steps to safeguard your own digital life. Stay safe out there, and remember, knowledge is power.